Howdy, it's Jim Morado, and it's late May, very late May 2021, and we stopped by Fort Boonesborough with some of our friends recently, just because I love Fort Boonesborough, and they've got some kids that wanted to check it out. We're actually leaving the gift shop, and kind of their entrance at the moment. I think that was kind of a temporary entrance with COVID. There's my buddy Spencer, and he just got a coonskin cap from the gift shop, and he wore that thing all day long, as I would have too if I were his age. Heck, I thought about getting one anyway just because they're cool. A funny side story, my dad used to hunt. My late father was a big raccoon hunter, very, very big deal in western Kentucky. And he told me that when, Davy Crockett and Daniel Boone and those TV shows were popular, he sold a whole lot of coon hides. And that's a story for another day. So yeah, on another day I'll tell you some of my dad's coon hunting stories. They're gold. But yeah, we are at Fort Boonesborough. This, to me, I always think of this as kind of being between Lexington and Richmond. If you're going to Lexington, if you're going to Richmond, if you're going to Berea, this is a great side trip. Yeah, kind of a really underrated spot in the state in my books. Usually have, and it seems like I always miss them, but they have events here. Yeah, they've got this, the Pioneer Fort, which is a replica of the one from the late 1700s. And it's just cool. And they always have reenactors. In fact, I went there on this particular day and I taped quite a bit. And I ended up talking to several of the little Pioneer reenactors. And most of this video is just going to be me talking to them, or mostly them telling me what they're up to. There were some really interesting characters. Probably chatted with 4 or 5 on this particular day. We were here a couple of hours, well, heck, probably 3 hours, and just had a good time. There was still a lot of stuff we didn't cover. And I'm sure, I like going here, and I'm sure I'll put up some more videos later of some of the other stuff, just because I like going here. Anytime a friend from out of town says, hey, what could we do on a Saturday or something, and this is one of my top suggestions, especially, kind of local to Lexington. I just love this area. It's also Halls on the River, which isn't too far from here, and has some Daniel Boone ties, and I know they have good beer cheese. I haven't been there in a while, though. I need to find an excuse to go back there. But look that up, especially about their ties to Daniel Boone. Also in southern Indiana, it'd be a little bit of a drive from here, but there's Squire Boone Caverns in southern Indiana, and the remains of Squire Boone, Daniel Boone's brother, are there. So, something to look up if you're thinking about a Daniel Boone road trip. But yeah, check this out. Just look around. This is a great fort. They've always got some sort of a fire going and blacksmith doing stuff. Just a lot going on. Hey, how are you?
You having a good day today?
Yeah, are you?
Yeah, I'm doing good.
What's going on in here?
I am your herbalist. So what I do here is I focus a lot on a lot of the herbs they would have, and what the medicine. I do a little bit of cooking as well as some of their gardening, but I mainly focus on herbs and cooking.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of their herbs would have been from medicine. So a lot of their medicine was mainly, poultices, salves, and tinctures. So their tinctures were teas that were for internal conditions. So like you've got a cough or a cold, you've got a sore throat, maybe a stomach ache, maybe you've got maybe you've got kidney problems or liver problems. Maybe you're constipated, or you can't poo, or you can poo, and you just don't. It's not right. Maybe if you have an earache or a headache, then your poultices were for your bigger out and external wounds. So if you've got a big cut, gash, or burn. It's more the reason you use your poultice is because it's more like a paste and it's easy to get in the wound, as well as cover it and keep it clean, keep it protected. Whereas your salves were more for your smaller wounds. They were more like balms, so they were very thin, easily spreadable on skin and very thin, so that they would stay there.
Okay.
And they were more for your like scrapes and small burns, as well as some very small cuts.
Well, that's interesting. Well, thank you.
No problem.
All right. And that young fellow was great. When we walked in there, I know he was reading a book on herbalism and herbs. You can tell that, he's somebody just excited about herbs and about the fort and the history. I think most of the people here are volunteers, or I'm sure they're not making bank. They're doing this because they enjoy doing it and being a part of this. And that's something. A historic site near where I live was actually offering minimum wage for people to work on certain days during the weekends, and I was tempted to look into it just because I really like what they're doing, and I would love to be a part of that. And obviously a lot of these reenactors and pioneers, they're doing this because they love it, and that young man was very enthusiastic. Yeah, I'm sure he's going to be contributing quite a bit to this fort in the near future. And check that out. I don't know if you remember. I remember the old Mark's play sets of the forts that you would kind of put together. And this, in fact, I think it was Fort Boonesborough. I think they had a toy of that. We'll see some Mark's toys later, by the way. They do have a little display here. Oh, hi there.
Hi. Howdy day. Welcome to Waving.
Howdy.
We have 3 looms in here. Those 2 need repair. This one has had some repairs, but most of the framework on it is over 200 years old. It's the one I use.
Oh, wow.
I'm weaving now not fabric for clothes, but of course looms are used to weave fabric, so we have clothes to wear, as well as back in Dana Boone's day. But a loom is designed to have all your threads threaded on, called warp. That's your length, and it's able to, by using hook treadles, to raise all the alternating threads, so we won't have to weave over, under one thread at a time. If you notice, this is a shuttle, by the way. It carries your filling thread, the weft. Some places call it woof. But by being able to push down one of these straddles, one of the harnesses rises, carrying its threads. They're threaded through heddles. It's like string needles. And the other one goes down. It creates this open space called a shed. And then I can take those threads to the bottom, raise the other ones to the top, and that's how we get her over, under. When the shuttle goes through, I've got 4 threads, so I work with it a little bit to make sure they're in place pretty good. But you beat it into place with your beater, and then switch your threads, go back in the opposite direction. Let's see if I can get thread there. And then beat it into place. And just back and forth like that. Your loom might have more than 2 harnesses. Ooh. This one does when we get it working. It's a 4 harness loom. It has metal heddles instead of string heddles. It has 4 harnesses, so you can pick up even more threads, make something even more decorative, like this overshot pattern was done a lot, that coverlet and those things over there on the wall. A 2 harness loom makes a plain or tabby weave, but it depends on how you thread your warp, like different colors, and switch maybe your colors on your shuttle occasionally to make even all kinds of patterns like checks and stripes and plaids and stuff, even on a 2 harness loom. Daniel Boone's father was a weaver and a blacksmith. A lot of young boys his age probably learned how to weave. It was a trade for a lot of men. The way they earned their money. And of course you could trade you could weave for the blacksmith. And then him do some work in return. Like trading and bartering type of thing. Which which I find interesting.
Yes.
What are you making right now?
Oh, I've been making placemats and a table runner.
Beautiful, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for visiting with us.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was great. I loved that demonstration. She was wonderful. And I've had that explained to me, geez, probably 100 times, and I still do not understand how that works. It's pretty cool to watch, and I'm sure if I sat down at one and practiced it myself, I would get it. But yeah, I at this moment, I do not understand how that works. It just does not make logical sense to me. And this was a neat little room. I kind of jokingly told my friends that room looks cozy, and I wondered if Fort Boonesborough would have any issue if every Saturday I just brought a coffee in there, paid my admission, and hung out there for the whole day. Because that's that kind of a cool room. I think that was the tavern, and they had a lot of information on the walls and some skins. I heard somebody ask, because I think there was some buffalo displayed somewhere, and somebody asked if there's still any of them around in Kentucky, and I was thinking about Land Between the Lakes. And I do have another video up on YouTube if you want to look at it on my YouTube channel. It's one of the first ones I posted, and it's a bison actually putting their head on my car and trapping me for 10 or 15 minutes. It's a fun video. It was not fun at the time, but it's an interesting video. Yeah, this is just a neat little cabin. I'd love to attend like a little concert here. I wonder if they ever have folk music in here. That would be something really fun to do. I'll need to look into that.
Howdy.
Hi. Oh, you don't want to film this.
Oh, is it?
This is, I'm trying to dye yarn, but I added soda ash, and I'm kind of thinking the way it did this, the soda ash should make it, change the pH of it and make it like a different color. But when I added it, because this is logwood, and logwood usually turns, that's not a bad color there, but I have a feeling, I'm wondering if there was soap in this before. And that's why, because it shouldn't have done.
Yeah.
See what it's done here?
Yeah, at the top.
And so I'm kind of wondering if, not only is it dyeing it, it's cleaning it. Anyway. So I'm just going to wait and see what happens here. But that's what I'm thinking happened, is that the soda ash reacted with maybe, I thought I had, he rinsed the pot out and all that, but who knows? Sometimes you get fun little science experiments here.
It kind of reminds me of when I was in high school and I used to do tie-dyed T-shirts.
Yeah, you never really knew what you were going to get.
Yes.
So that's what that is. It's supposed to turn like an orange, and then when you add the soda ash, it changes the pH of it, and then that would make it turn more of a purple color.
Oh, okay.
But I'm not getting, it's not really doing what I thought it might do. But it could be I just have to wait, and when the fizz from that goes down, which I'm hoping it will.
Then it might work.
Yeah, then it might work. But we do all our dyes are natural dyes. The soda ash we could get here. It's just ash. We soak it in alum beforehand, and alum is a pickling spice, but we could get that at the salt licks. And then the logwood, you can boil down logwood bark and get that. But through the 21st century technology of the internet, I was able to get logwood powder. Well, actually, I found it here.
So you were good to go.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's what that is. Or it should have been. We'll just see what it is.
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. So in here is where I do all the. I will let you step in. I've been vaccinated, so I'm not worried.
We all leave it too.
Yeah. So they said that we didn't have to wear masks.
Oh, good.
But anyway, what I've done here is this fleece right here. You can touch it if you want to touch it. You don't have to. This just is kind of
Oh,
like
touch
if
it.
your dog was neglected. This is what happens
Oh, okay.
when you decide
Yeah.
not to brush your dog. So here on the other side, it's the lanolin side. And so what I do is I take this and I clean it with soapy water. And if you look over here, see my pile of white over here? I clean that and I'm letting it dry out. And once it dries out, I'll take it and I just pull it apart like this. And I keep pulling it until I get it so that I can brush it. And then I'll brush it like this. Now there's two ways of doing this. You know when you brush your hair, well not you two, but you know. You know when you brush your hair, you can still leave in a few little rats and it'll still have, but when you comb it, so when I brush it, I'm gonna have a yarn that has a few little short hairs and bumps, and that's fine. I mean, I don't mind bumpy yarn. It won't be totally bumpy, but if I comb it, which is this method over here, these are combs. So if you comb it like this, then what I do is I pull this off here, and this stuff is really nice. And this is the preferred method to do it, in that the yarn's nicer. So from there, I take this. This is a drop spindle, and all the kids up here had these. By the time you were 6, you got to have a drop spindle. You knew how to do this. So what you do is you give that a little spin like that, and what it does in turn is it's twisting my wool. Now, back to your hair. The reason that it stays together so nicely is back to when your hair gets matted, it's because it has barbs in it. Well, the wool is the same way. It wants to, for the most part, this will stay together because it wants to hook onto the other parts of it, the other barbs. They want to entwine together, kind of like Velcro. So for them, and that kind of, sometimes I'll pull it out a bit when I start, and then I just, and that is what you'd all be doing by the time you were 6. You would all be really, really good at this.
Oh, wow.
Do any of you knit?
I don't. Jen, do you knit at all? Oh.
Okay. That would be horrible for you in the 18th century, because by the time you were 10, you would be required to knit your own socks. And I'm talking boys and girls. It wasn't up here, everybody was taught the same skills. Men and women, you all knew how to do the same thing. Except men, you couldn't have those babies, and that's where things separated out. But pretty much, women, men knew how to knit, women did. You could start a fire, you could shoot a gun, you could go get a rabbit or squirrel for dinner. But now most people did these little spindles here. That's how they spun. That's the majority of the yarn up here. But there were some people that had spinning wheels. This one over here, I forgot to take it. Let me show you this. This is kind of cool when you look at it. I've made these, and the woodcutter here made the other one. So you can see these are not that hard to make. But if you look, this is called a walking wheel, and if look at this and look at this, it's just a spindle attached to a giant wheel here. So this one, they have these too, and they're again not as many as those. But this, what it's doing is it, using my arm, it has twisted that, if you can see that, and then I just do this. Now I'm not as good at this. It should be easier for me, and I don't know why it's not, but I really prefer the spindle. But then afterwards, it takes it right back on for you. And then right here, I'm plying my yarn. It's some yarn I did yesterday and the day before, and I'm putting it together. So but they all work the same way, because now you have, and this one I'm just spinning a single strand. Okay, so this is called a whirl, and we've got the spindle, but now on top of right here, there's a bobbin attached, and then there's this thing called a fire. And so when you spin on this is probably my favorite way to spin, because I can pretty much just spin all day like this.
Oh, yeah.
But then sometimes I have to talk to people. So. But you can see I can go a lot faster. So if you had one of these up here, you'd be, kind of the queen of spinning. They got more of these up here as the wagons came up, but initially, anything you brought up here, you had to carry yourself, or you put it on your horse. Now, once the wagons, that was another story, once the roads were well enough. But mostly what they brought up here initially would be the tools to make the things they needed, like the gardening tools, the building tools. Your spindle you could make here. But one lady really wanted her spinning wheel up here. So she had, the prerequisite 10 children that you need to have. So she took our spinning wheel apart and she put pieces of it in all her children's packs. So along with whatever clothing they were going to bring, which was probably just one outfit change, they also brought her spinning wheel up for her. And I think if I was actually born in that century, I would have done the same thing.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Wow.
Anyway, any questions?
No, I think you covered it. Yeah.
Oh, they brought sheep up with them too. Right. And they also had bison. They didn't bring the bison. The bison were all over the United States. And so they took the bison, when they shed out in about May, about right now they should be shedding out, they would go out and just pick up the bison and add that to their wool. Or just use that, because sometimes the Indians would eat their sheep.
Oh.
So, I mean, because they didn't see it as,
Yeah.
Yes.
Any questions?
Oh. This is great. Thank you.
And this is probably the funnest cabin up here. I should just
Well, I would know. I was just thinking that actually.
It is. It is. It's a great cabin. I have so much. I mean, even with my science experiments here, it's fun.
What's going on?
I don't know. It's gonna look and see.
See if it's
It's still, but it looks like if you look at it, there's like a little strand there that looks kind of like it's getting orange.
Oh, orange. Yes.
I don't know if it turns orange. I'm good with that. I'm not as good with the slime on top. I'm not sure why that. If it's a result of the soap, because if you look around here, that's what soap does.
Yeah.
Because I used to be in the soap cabin, and soap will make that. So maybe that'll be real easy to clean because it'll already be soapy.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, we'll see what happens.
Be an optimist about it for sure. Yes. Yes.
And it's just yarn. I'll make more of that. I can re-dye it too. So.
Well, thank you.
Okay.
And man, was she fun to talk to. That was great. I really liked the little dye thing she had going on there, and then she gave a great presentation. You could tell her heart was really into it, and I really enjoyed hearing her talk.
But I make these little stools in the front. And I do things like make spoons. I don't make too many bowls, but I made that one. Bowls take quite a long time. It took me about a week to make that one. But most of my work I do on this bench is called a shave horse. It's just a vise, clamps of wood, and I make handles. I make those spoons. It's using a draw knife. The shave horse just works as a vise that push with your foot and that frees your hands up. I probably do about 90% of my work on the shave horse. You do handles and those two stools, the square leg stool and the 3-leg stool is made on this. And I do odd things. There was a basket handle actually I made on there. You can whittle away anything on the shave horse. They used to use it to make to finish that shingles. I say I don't do shingles because I don't have a need for them, but they probably use it. I make pegs and handles. So this was probably one of the first things they built when they got here, because you could use it to make a cabin.
Oh, okay.
You use it for pegs and shingles and things like that.
All right.
But I also have, you can see one of my stools is turned. I have a lathe. You foot treadle lathe. You kick the treadle forward to wherever you need them most comfortable. You can also move around for different areas of cut, and you're using a chisel. No different than what we use today on modern electric lathe. So you can turn pretty good, a little slower, but it does a good job. Turn that little stool on it. Turn some other odds and ends. There's a rolling pin I turned. handle for those T-augers on the wall. All my tools on the wall are antique. I can use about half of them. Half of them are good and half of them seen the last days.
Yeah.
I found a good auger, had a good bit on it, but the handle was cracked, so I turned the handle.
Ah.
I just haven't put it on yet. You can see I matched it to that one. You didn't measure it. I just hold it up and get as close as you can. You
Yeah.
don't have to measure everything. Just copy it out for that one. That's some of the things I've turned.
Well, that's interesting. All right.
Have any questions about anything?
No, I think we're good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too.
You too.
Yeah, and I came in a little bit late to his presentation. I'd kind of like to go back and hear more of it, though. I'm always fascinated with woodwork, and he'd obviously done quite a bit there, so that was pretty cool. And we're about to go into a little cabin. Actually, not this one. Yeah, here we go. This is a little cabin where they have a lot of Daniel Boone and Fort Boonesborough collectible type items. And I kind of went through here kind of quick. With the kids, we had our friends' kids with us, and we had to keep their attention. I love the first day covers. That's something, I have some of those myself. I love stamped envelopes from the first day of issue and that kind of thing. I love old postcards, love the stamps. And yeah, you might want to go through. I probably should have slowed this down a little bit. Love the lunchbox and comic books. There's some old VHS tapes there. I don't know about you, but I got rid of most of my VHS tapes. Comic books. Of course, most of those have Fess Parker on them from his days as Daniel Boone / Davy Crockett. I did read an article. He was out here at some point. I think I read that in a Kentucky Explorer recently. I love the bags. I love the wrappers and things that are kind of disposable. And that Indian head, I know that was displayed in another part of the fort at a different time. I'm not sure why they moved it over there. I love that lamp in the Halloween costume, too. I think that lamp is just great. I'd love to have one of those. In fact, I might have to hunt one of those down. Little information about this specific collection. And some really unique items. The plates, I don't quite get plate collectors, but I know there's a lot of them out there. I know the fragile ones, I'm always scared I'm going to break them. I do love the old Mark's Toys. And as I look at those, I don't think... I've got a few of those items. Oh yeah, check that out. The fireworks. That's an interesting one. Yeah, I do love those figures. I've got a few of those. Myself. I like to paint toy soldiers. I've actually painted a few of those. I like them better painted. And that's just me, though. But yeah, this is a neat little cabin where they have all little cigar bands. A lot of Daniel Boone stuff was produced, especially in the 50s and 60s. He was obviously a big deal. Like I said, I was excited to see my 5-6-year-old friend Spencer wearing a coonskin cap. I would love to see those make a comeback. Yeah, the young people now, though, pioneers, cowboys, Indians, that sort of thing is ice cold.
Home and probably a little over 1,600 degrees for about 4 hours. This right here, and this bowl here is made out of this creek clay. If I fired this at 1,600 degrees, it'd probably melt. Or it might just sit there and do nothing. Get it back out and it might just be dried, more dried than what it is. I threw this on what we call a kick wheel. And this is what you typically find on the frontier, but I'll use a stone more like that. Probably something that's hand chiseled out. This is just a poured slab of concrete. and, you know, metal shaft, metal pan. And back then, they had some metal, the blacksmith would use for hinges and forks and stuff like that. But probably wouldn't find too much metal on something like this, probably wood. But you kick this wheel, get the speed build up, and then you actually shape the ball of clay you stuck on there, right, into whatever shape you want. This one, when I threw this, I had to stop while I was making it and dig out some chips and sticks and stuff like that. There's a few little spots here and there on the inside and out. But most of the big stuff I'd pinched out earlier. This other wheel over here is called a treadle wheel. First time I ever used it when I made this piece about 4 weeks ago. Now I decided to go ahead and smooth it down a little bit on the bottom, trim it. But you just, then it gets this board here, you get the rest while you're working. And you can crank this with your foot. You can go one way or another. I'm left-handed, but I was trained on how to throw right-handed. If you're left-handed, you put your hands on the right side of the pot where you're making it. If you're right-handed, you're on the right side. And left-handed, you would crank the wheel, it would be kicked, it would crank to go clockwise. And the reason, because the clay goes around, and we want to travel through the palm, soft, flat part of your hand first. And then when it comes through your fingertips, your fingers pushing in and out is what shapes the clay in and out. And if I work on this side, the clay would be jammed into my fingers. All I gotta do is, you know, have an extra long nail or fingernails to be too long, or just bend one finger a little bit too much and I can tear the pot apart. So if on this one, you want to change the direction, again, I would work on the right side. Once you shape the piece, you let it dry. It's called greenware, and not just because it's colored, but like a rookie, a greenhorn. This is pretty well useless. You know, so put water in this, water in this, and water in this. Give it about an hour. This would fall apart. It'd be a puddle of mud. This right here would have a wet spot on the bottom of it. This one there'd be no wet. It'd be all inside here because this one has been fired or baked one time. It's called bisqueware, like a biscuit. And then here, this has been buttered, or in other words, glazed. And the glaze has been melted on the inside and out, except for the bottom, outside bottom. And it's now waterproofed. It's also a lot easier to clean, and it's tougher. It gives it color. And glaze is nothing but clay, like this clay is a little bit kind of a orangey looking. This clay right here was like red. It was exactly like a chunk of chocolate when I made the piece. And then when it dried, it ended up being kind of a lighter reddish color, and then when you fire it, it turns out orange. Glazes have different chemicals and stuff in them. The clay does, that you actually use the clay with, and it causes it to shine. It can be real dull. It can crackle. It can bubble. It can be real clear, transparent, or it can be semi-transparent or opaque. Glazing is almost like being in a chemistry building on campus at UK. It's actually a chemistry. When I fire a clay work, I use a cube back here, a cheat. What I'm going to try to do in the future is try to actually do a clay fire in an oven over there. Underneath
Oh, yeah.
two-wheel cart
When
is.
you come in, yeah.
Underneath that shed there, there's a baking oven, mostly for bread. So the cabin across from me, that's I guess I call that the food cabin. The person in there is in charge of making food for all of us pioneers, and well, at least the single guys, you know. Single guys. The married guys, they have their wife back in the cabin and cook for them, but that oven right there is actually like a community type oven. People take turns using it. They built it about 3 years ago and cook bread in it, but if I get a pretty good collection of these pots and stuff made, then instead of just one fireman and electric come back here, I think I'll just go ahead and try to use that over there.
Yeah.
Make it more authentic.
Yeah.
Let's see how it goes. But I'd load it with wood, except this inside part, and I would stack all these pots out when they get in the middle, and then torch the wood, close it off, and let it slowly bake about 8 or 10 hours. And then open it up and take the pots out, shovel the charcoal out, maybe get to the blacksmith let him use instead. He doesn't use coal, he uses charcoal. The other choice I have is use that pit that's across from the 2 cabins down is where the, we currently don't have a lye salt maker. The last one we had, they made a big extra large supply. You'll see salt back there. But they don't do it the traditional way, make it out on the fire, but they should. But I'm gonna use that fire pit maybe to fire some of these pieces in also. But right now, the big thing I'm trying to do is crush this clay. Dig it out, break it up in chunks, and then grind it with this, and then separate it into that powder form right there, like that.
Oh.
And then the bigger chunks like this, I might grind those, try to grind those again a little bit more, but this feels kind of gritty. Like it may have too much sand in it to use. There's a stick actually in there. But it's cleaner and clearer than what it was. But that might be enough for maybe that much clay right there. I might be able to make probably about 3 to 4 of those at the most. That's where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
Got a lot of grinding to do.
Yes.
I think once I get a bunch of clay built up, then I'll maybe then actually spend more time on the power wheels.
Yeah, they used to do this big, we all went to Berea, so.
Oh, you know about the crafts now.
Well, some, but they used to do this, they used to do the big fire ones.
Yeah.
Everybody would take turns, I guess, feeding the fire, and it would go all night. I wasn't in that, but my wife would probably know more about that. But yeah, some of them were labor positions, so some people, it's like their job.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't do, they still have the electric ones too, but they wanted them to learn some of the traditional stuff too,
Yeah.
so it's kind of cool.
Well, I went to Moorhead State back in the dinosaur days. And,
Yeah.
First, I took 2 ceramic classes there.
Yeah.
First one's like a beginning class, and we hand built for about the first 8 weeks, and then the second 8 weeks, if we wanted to, we continue hand building. We could throw in potter wheel. Well, they had about 2 dozen electric potter wheels,
Yeah.
all for right-handers. And they said, if you're a left-hander, there you go. I had 3 kick wheels.
Yeah.
So I kicked for about 4 weeks. And I started getting one big muscular leg and one little skinny puny leg. And I thought, I'm getting tired of having to come in here and all that. I'd leave the class we were out.
Yeah.
And the people in the potter wheels, man, they would leave classes happy and all kinds of energy. So I thought, I'm going to learn how to throw right-handed so I can throw an electric wheel.
Yeah.
So I did both of those. And the instructors always took care of the clay firing for us when you were a beginner. When you move up in classes, like second, I went from beginner class 4 years later to a graduate level class.
Yeah.
And the instructor says, you're a graduate student, mix your own clay. We had a pug mill, clay come in bag form, big powder bags, and we had to learn how to make our own clay. We had to make our own glazes. Couldn't buy them in cans like they do now.
Yeah.
You go back to the place, the recipe rooms they call it, and you had about 5 or 6 of these big drawers.
Yeah.
And they were loaded with different kinds of chemicals. You had a weight scale, and you had to measure out so many grams of this, so many of that, mix it up, and usually they want you to do a 5-gallon bucket.
Yeah.
That way, you used all you needed. There's still some left for somebody else, like one of the rookies to use.
Yep.
And you had to do test samples, and had to do a raccoon fire. And this is a lid. The glaze on the inside kind of turned out my cowlet. I've got a bowl at home. It looks like metal, but that raccoon you load the kiln on your own. It's about 900 degrees, and then you take the stuff out with tongs, of course. And dip it in a bucket. Dip it into a container of some type, fireproof container with straw or leaves on it, and let it smolder. And I'd like to be able to when I do a pit fire here, I'll probably have to get permission to get here early.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be a long, like 8 or 9 hour. Maybe overnight, I probably couldn't do that, but I had to start early in the morning and be prepared for a lot of smoke to get started, and then probably have to stay here late in the evening.
Well, this thing was, I know when they would build it, it was, the bricks and the wood fire, but the thing would be huge, tall, big, and they would fire like everybody's stuff, but everybody would have to take turns feeding it. But, I heard my sister-in-law finished art major and had done that, and for a later position had done through ceramics and made the stuff that they sell,
Yeah.
But she was complaining about that even 20 some years later, like if so-and-so didn't show up for the shift, or, you know what I mean, and then it'd get a little cooler, and then stuff wouldn't turn out right, you know, it was like, so, I'm sure it was,
This is a real mixture. Clay work is a real mixture between science and art.
yeah.
Those two blend, I mean, those two are
When you see a professional do the wheel,
together
you're
like
like,
that.
that looks super easy, I could do that, and then you do it, and you're like, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah, the more you dig into it, it's like blacksmithing. Anybody can really take a piece of hot metal and hammer on it and give it some kind of rough shape, but the deeper you get into it, the more you find out there's a lot more to it, especially all the metals that are out there now. I blacksmith a little bit at home, but you know, I've seen a chart here just a few months ago of all the so-called modern day metals that are out there, the amount of carbon they have in it. I think that thing had probably about 40, 50 different kind of metals listed. And like everybody's into knife making right now. They forge and fire.
Yes, yep.
And most of the blacksmiths they're bladesmiths, not blacksmiths, but the biggest metal they're after is leaf springs on cars, you know, the coils and the leaves. That's the best metal. I can't think of the number, 1095 or something like that. That's supposed to be the best metal for blades.
Yeah.
But that's science. And certain temperature, how long it has to be heated up, what kind of metal you're working with. But the glazing, it's chemistry. You know, it's so easy just to get a can, store bought. It's a pretty color.
Yeah,
you
start there.
fire it out about 1600 degrees, like 05 or 06. And you pour it out and brush it on there or whatever. And the more you start mixing it up on your own, making your own clay from a creek bank becomes a lot more down to earth.
That's when you run into those guys like from the auto industries, and they have a bachelor's and a master's degree in paints for the auto. You know, that's they have like 2 degrees, and you're like,
I mean,
you got a bachelor's degree in car paints, like, oh my, you know, it's so specific. You know, it's like,
well, a lot of people don't go to college or whatever. They you have an art degree in college. You know, well, honestly, when I went to Morehead State, I took 4 years of high school art, didn't have any training until I got to high school, but I had a natural talent. And I remember my art teacher actually teaching me 2 or 3 basic things on drawing. When I went to college, you show up for a drawing class, and there's no real instruction given. You show up, and there's a model out there, laying there on the bed. All right, you stand at your ease when you draw. The instructor walks by and says, good job, or you might want to change this a little bit. Didn't really do a lot of instructing. Same thing for painting. Now when you got into ceramics, they demonstrated the different techniques, and then kind of turn you loose, but the longer you get in there, the more advanced. I got a buddy of mine, he went to Berea for 1 semester, and then transferred to Morehead. He's from Southeast Asia. And so we got to know each other at Morehead State, hung out together because we're art majors. And he took every ceramics class at Morehead State, offered about 8 different classes. And then when he left there, he went to Marshall University and got an MFA. That's at least 20 high-level classes just in ceramics. I had 2 classes and he had like maybe about 30. So he better know more about it than I did. But it's been a while. It's probably been, before I threw this one about 4 weeks ago, it's been probably about 8 years since I threw the thing with the wheels. It's starting to come back.
Good.
But you know, I guess that's a sign if you truly learn something.
Sure.
And a lot of this stuff I got to do my homework. I got home and crashed a book. Like, which way do I look at this, upside down, or what makes more sense? And especially on the recipes and stuff for glazes. And I'd like to be able to build a glaze here to use, especially if pieces end up in our store over there to sell. It really, the pieces that sold in that store, they need to be, I feel like, it needs to be more authentic. It needs to be handmade. Or hand-dug clay locally. And also the glazes need to be handmade, and they really should be fired in a pit fire and not in a kiln. It should be as authentic as it can be.
Really cool.
Hopefully in about 6 months, when our season shuts down, the end of October, I may have actually a few pieces made that it's all genuine, handmade Kentucky right here at the fort, and maybe little souvenir pieces people can
that'd be
throw
cool.
them $1 in the gift shop and walk out with it. Or a pence or a shilling or something like that, whatever kind of money you have.
Right.
Maybe put a little dance on for them over there. Like to give it to you. Okay, you earned it. Or please, please quit, you know, get out of here. That little bartering and trading.
Yeah.
Well, the blacksmith made me a little flat screwdriver. He's made a few for the gift shop. I think there's some over there for sale, but he may be making one now, but he made one that's going to give it to me. So now I'm from old school. Well, he give me something and I didn't give him something in return, but I will.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a piece of clay work for him and give it to him. I give him a piece of beeswax. That's what he coats some of his metal down with.
Yeah.
The piece I give him was less, smaller than this and uglier. I brought a nicer piece from home.
Yeah.
I won't be using it, but I may give it to him later.
Yeah.
I'll give him, barter, trade it back.
Yeah.
Very cool.
She's ready to go. She had a chance to see the other cabin. Do you see the soap making cabin?
We did.
Oh.
I wish we had somebody demonstrating that, but I know basically how. I know how to render lard and how to get the lye from the wood, ash.
Yeah.
But they buy their lard in the store, and the lye they get in containers. I think they make 1 or 2 big batches a year, and that's about it.
And he was at
I'm
here.
hoping to spend part of my time here, and part of my time there, and part of my time on the candle cabin. I'd like to go down and spend some time weaving and some blacksmithing and then doing woodwork. I'm no master of nothing, but
Yeah. No, it's
I've got a working knowledge of a lot of things.
keep
Not
it
coming
interesting.
in.
Yeah.
Well, right now I'm getting my hands dirty.
There you go.
Yes.
Didn't get to play in mud much when I was a kid. I wanted to.
Oh.
See, I'm making up for
Well, now
it.
you can. Yes. All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll give him the last word. That was great. What a great presentation. What a great discussion. I liked his idea a lot about the very authentic items in the gift shop. Yeah, but that was our visit to Fort Boonesborough. So check that out. That was kind of an edited visit, actually. So more on that later.